Shalom. I'm Rabbi Nathan Davidovich, speaking to you on behalf of the webyeshiva.org, speaking to you from Efrat, Israel. I'm going to spend a few moments talking about today's Parsha, which is Parsha Balak. In this Parsha, we see that Baalam, who's the wicked prophet, was hired by King Balak of Moab to curse the Jewish people. The king realized that he wasn't able to defeat them physically, so he figured by using this wicked prophet, excuse me, he would be able to put a curse on them and be able to defeat them. Instead of a curse, even though Baalam wanted to curse, he ended up giving a blessing. Excuse me. A blessing which is said every single day in the Jewish morning service by most people. We can learn a lesson from this blessing and the means in which Balaam tried to curse the Jewish people, a lesson that is very important for today, a lesson in unity. John Donne, in a poem in 1624, said, "No man is an island entirely of itself." Which means that back then, 400 years ago, John Donne realized that we're all part of everybody else. The Torah tells us that 3,500 years ago, that as Jews, we are all part. We form one unity of the Jewish people. And we learn that the strength of the Jewish people throughout the ages is based upon unity. Now let's talk about this parsha and how we get there. First of all, Balak sends messengers to Balaam to come and curse the Jewish people. And we have the famous story as he's going up to curse the people. He's riding on his donkey. And the donkey, 3 different times, once goes astray, once crushes Balaam's leg against the narrow wall, and the 3rd time just sits down. And each time Balaam is beating the donkey, and the donkey, of course, was moving away because he saw in front of them an angel of God with a fiery sword. So he's trying to avoid that. And finally he sat down because this angel was right in front of him with the fiery sword. And here Balaam is beating him each time. So what happens? God gives the power of speech to the donkey. And the donkey starts talking. And he says, "Why are you beating me?" And what does Balaam do? You would think, suddenly you hear a donkey start talking, you wonder, well, something's going on here. No, not Balaam. He immediately continued berating the donkey from his anger. And that's certainly a lesson that we learn in anger. Anger can cloud your reasoning. Now, disunity among the Jewish people can also cloud your reasoning. Let's talk about this blessing. The Torah says that Balaam said as follows, "Ma tovu oholecha Yaakov mishkenosecha Yisrael." How goodly are your tents, O Jacob, your dwelling places of Israel. The sages teach us, there's many different interpretations, Shatim, on this sentence, but it teaches us that the language of Halecha Yaakov refers to the study halls, the places where we study Torah. Mishkanosech Yisrael refers to the synagogues, to the shuls, to the place where we go to pray to God. What is unique about these two places? Because when Jews are in a synagogue or in a study hall, there is unity. At least there certainly should be. There's no strife. People are praying to God. People are learning Torah. It's a question. It's a lesson in unity. What he was saying, and the Chazal teach us that he was giving the blessing of unity. Now, he didn't want to give this blessing. He wanted to curse Bnei Yisrael. He wanted to say, you shouldn't have unity. You shouldn't have synagogues. You shouldn't have study halls. But God wouldn't let him, and he put these words into his mouth. And the Netivot Shalom talks about the fact that the Batei Knesiot, the Batei Midrashot, the synagogues, the study halls, they're the essence of unity of all of Yisrael, because people are unified together. And so he wanted to nullify that aspect of unity, and he wanted to make a separation between them, but it didn't come out that way. And we see at the end of this Parsha, Balaam gave advice to Moab as to what to do. And at the end of the Parsha, we see the Bnei Yisrael, the Torah says, Vayeshev Yisrael Bashittim, Vayechal ha'am liznot es benos Moab. The children of Israel dwelled in a place called Shittim, and they started to have immoral relations with the daughters of Moab. Now, there's another lesson to be learned from this too. They initially only wanted to have immoral relations. They wanted to satisfy their prurient interests. But then it goes on, and then the people came close and they started offering sacrifices to Baal Peor, to the idol. They were eating with the people. And that of course, is a lesson that oftentimes the Yetzer Hora will cause you to do a less stringent sin in order to make you do a more severe one. And that's what happened here. And that's a message that we can also learn. But what happened in this, in what was happening to the Bnei Israel then? What was happening then is they were separating themselves from the Klal Yisrael. They no longer had unity as a people, but each person was his own. Each person was fulfilling his own narcissistic desires. As a result, there was a plague where 24,000 people were killed until Pinchas was able to stop the plague by killing two of the main perpetrators. But up until then, 24,000 were killed. And the Netivot Shalom says it's an interesting figure, 24,000, because we see also with Rabbi Akiva, 24,000 of his students died. And the Arizal talks about reincarnation and Gilgalim, and he says the neshamos of the Talmidim of Rabbi Akiva were part of the neshamos of these 24,000 people. And he asked the question, what is the connection with the Rabbi Akiva? What was their sin? They were great Talmidei Chachamim, they studied Torah all the time, but they didn't give kavod to one another. They didn't care about the next person. They didn't give honor, and because of that, they were killed. Here too, what Balaam ultimately had people do was to not care about Klal Yisrael, not care about what their neighbors said, but to act individually, separate from the Klal. And the message we learn from that is that the Torah wants us to live matovu halech Yaakov mishkanosech Yisrael, that we have to live in unity. As we live in unity, nothing can affect the Jewish people. My blessing to all of us and to the world is that we learn to be united and stop the division between the Jewish people and between the rest of the world. Thank you for listening on behalf of webyeshiva.org. Wish everybody Shabbat Shalom.